I clutched my sister Victoria's invitation to my niece Ella's graduation party. After months of building my marketing company, I thought this was a chance to mend our family. I showed up with an expensive gift, an old camera for Ella, to prove I was no longer a failure. But my mother curled her lip and called my company small. Victoria scoffed, accusing me of neglecting my family. My heart sank. They didn't see my sweat. They just saw that I wasn't like them. That night, I wondered, did they ever really want me here? I stood in Victoria's backyard, the June sun shining brightly but failing to warm my heart. Ella's graduation party was supposed to be a happy occasion, but now everything was falling apart. I had come hoping to mend things, holding the antique camera I'd carefully chosen for Ella, an expensive gift from long nights at my small marketing agency. I wanted them to see that I wasn't useless. But then Victoria, my sister, stepped forward, a perfect smile on her face, but a sharp voice. "You always have to be different, Claire," she said, her eyes flashing with weariness. "We're tired of always being careful not to upset you." I stiffened, trying to stay calm. The crowd around me, my relatives, my friends, seemed to blur. I wanted to argue, to talk about the days I slept 4 hours to seal the deal, the times I refused to rest to prove I was good enough. But Victoria wasn't done. She looked straight at me, her voice cold. "Honestly, no one wants you here." My heart clenched. I turned to my mother, hoping for a small word of defense. But she bowed her head, her hands clasped around her napkin, silent agreement. The silence was more painful than her words. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, feeling like my childhood home, where I used to run around with Victoria, was now a cramped cage with no room for me. They didn't see me for who I was. To them, I was a blemish on Victoria's perfect life. Prestigious school, rich husband, beautiful house. I, with my small company and worn-out shoes, was nothing. But what shocked me wasn't her words. I was used to being compared, but the way they laid bare the truth. My family didn't want to understand me. They wanted me to be a different version, safer, more like them. I could have argued, blamed, begged them to look at me differently, but I didn't. I turned and walked across the lawn, the laughter of the party fading away. I found Ella, hugged her one last time, whispered my congratulations before leaving. As I drove out of the posh Victoria neighborhood, I felt a strange mix of pain and freedom. They didn't want me there? Fine. I wasn't going to force myself into a place where my dreams weren't there. When I got home, I opened my laptop, the light of the screen illuminating my tired face. The company was where I belonged, not the judgmental backyard. I began to plan my expansion, each line a manifesto. I didn't need their approval to succeed. I slept that night with renewed determination. They might not see my worth, but I would prove it. Not to them, but to myself. For the first time, I felt relief in letting go of what I had craved most, the unconditional love of my family. I locked the door to my apartment and cut off all contact with my family after the party. My phone went silent. No texts, no calls from my mom or Victoria. I thought I would be sad, but instead I felt relieved. I poured myself into my marketing agency, where I could breathe without judgment. The days turned into weeks, then months. I worked myself to exhaustion, my eyes stinging in front of my laptop, but each new contract was another building block in my world. Still, in the quiet of the night, I could hear the whispers of self-doubt. Am I good enough, or are they right to call me a failure? I called Grandpa William, the only person who never saw me through Victoria's eyes. His voice was hoarse over the phone, but warm as a winter fire. "Your family," he said, "likes the road that has been laid out for them, safe, predictable. You're different. You've chosen the mountain that no one has climbed yet." I sat there thinking. He was right. My mother wanted me to get a stable education, marry a rich man like Victoria, live in a house with a white picket fence. They couldn't understand why I'd chosen this bumpy road, starting my own business, relying on no one. His words were like light through the fog, helping me see clearly. It wasn't that I was wrong. It was that they couldn't accept anyone going against the flow. The company began to take off. I signed a big contract, hired more people, and moved my office from my cramped apartment to a bright space with exposed brick walls. I was proud, not because of the money, but because it was proof that I didn't need their approval to succeed. But then one morning, my phone lit up with a text from my mother. "We need to talk. Call me." I was stunned. After months of silence, they were here? I opened my email and saw an invitation from Victoria to my mother's birthday party. My heart was in turmoil. Why now? Then I understood. Last week, a business magazine had published a story about my company. A picture of me standing among my team, smiling brightly, under the headline, Marketing's Rising Star. Dad, the quietest of the family, must have shown it to Victoria. They didn't call when I struggled with bills, when I slept on the sofa to save on office rent. Only when the outside world acknowledged me did they remember I existed. The truth was bitter. Their love was conditional, attached to my success, not to who I was. I looked out the window, the city twinkling with lights. The joy of new contracts suddenly faded. I had dreamed of the day when they would be proud of me, but now their return only made me more confused. They wanted me back, but was it to show off? Or was it because they truly regretted it? I picked up the phone, my finger hesitant on the call button. My grandfather's voice echoed in my head, "You don't need them to prove anything." I put the phone down, choosing silence. The company was my real family now, where I belonged, without needing anyone to confirm my worth. I was sitting in my office, the afternoon light fading through the large windows, when the door swung open. Victoria walked in unannounced, in a sharp gray suit. My sister, the one who had said no one wanted me here, was standing before me, her voice strangely soft. "Claire," she said, her hands clasped together as if to hide her nervousness, "Mom's birthday is coming up. I'm sorry about earlier. She wants you home." I looked up, my heart pounding. Sorry? After almost a year of silence, she was coming for me? I wanted to believe it, but doubt was gnawing at me. "Why now?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Because of that article? Because I'm worth it to everyone now." Victoria hesitated, but didn't answer. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the busy traffic. My company, the baby I had built from scratch, was now my pride. But my family would only come back when it was publicly acknowledged. Was her sincerity real, or just a facade? I took a deep breath and turned back. "If we want to fix this, we need to talk. All of us. No more avoiding it." She nodded, her eyes flashing with surprise. I didn't refuse, but I didn't open up easily either. I needed the truth. That day, I sat in my parents' living room, the smell of old wood and dried flowers reminding me of my childhood. My parents sat opposite me, Victoria beside me, Grandpa William silently guarding me behind me. I spoke, my voice shaky but firm. "I've lived my whole life in the shadow of disappointment. Mom, Dad, sister, you all wanted me to be someone else, not who I am now. I needed to know if people had really changed." Mom lowered her head, Dad coughed, and Victoria looked at me, for once without a hint of condescension. Then my mother spoke, her voice low but clear. "Claire, I kept some articles about your company. I'm not good at talking about them, but I'm proud." She took a stack of papers from a drawer, articles about me, the edges yellowed. I was stunned. My mother, the one who had called my company small, had been secretly watching me? My heart softened a little, but the pain was still there, as sharp as ever. "I was proud," I repeated, my voice choking. "But why didn't you say anything when I needed you most? When I was struggling alone, you chose silence." Dad took Mom's hand, looking at me. "We were wrong, Claire. We were afraid you would fail, so we forced you into our mold." Victoria nodded, adding, "Me too. I don't understand why you chose the hard path." They were sincere, I could feel it, but I needed more. "I don't want conditional love." I said, my eyes tearing up. "If I fail, will you still be here? Or will I only be worth it if I succeed?" The room fell silent. Mom wiped away her tears. Dad nodded slowly. "We'll try," she whispered. I wasn't sure if they'd ever change completely, but for the first time, I felt hope. Not immediate forgiveness, but a start. I left lighter, but still wary. They might change, but I'd learned not to need them to stand. I sat in the middle of my parents' living room, the pale yellow light illuminating their faces, my mother anxious, my father pensive, Victoria tense. I took a deep breath, my voice shaking but firm. "I want real respect," I said, looking at each of them. Not because my company is successful, not because the press is praising me. Whether I fail or soar, I want you to be here for who I am, not for what I've achieved. My mother blinked, as if to protest, but I continued. "Otherwise, I'll go it alone." The words were like a stone thrown into a still lake, the ripples spreading far and wide. At the same time, I faced a bigger choice. Catherine from Vantage Media called, sounding convincing, offering to buy my company, a tempting offer with enough money to make me never worry again. I sat in my office, the contract in front of me, my fingers running over the numbers. But I shook my head and called her back. Thanks, but I'm not ready to give up my freedom. I heard a sigh through the phone, but Catherine smiled in her voice. You're a rare breed, Claire. I hung up, feeling light. The company was my heart. I wasn't going to sell it to please anyone. The consequences were swift. My family nodded, promising to try to change, though I saw the doubt in their eyes. My mother held my hand and whispered, "We'll learn to understand you." But I knew that old habits die hard. Then, as if in a test of fate, the economic crisis hit. The company lost 3 big clients in 1 week. 40% of its revenue had evaporated. I stood in the middle of the office, my team watching me, waiting. I didn't panic. We'll get through this, I said, my voice firm even as my heart raced. We held meetings late into the night, cut costs, found new clients. I sold my old car, moved to a smaller apartment, and devoted everything to keeping the team together. In the chaos, my grandfather William's words echoed in my head. Success isn't about avoiding the rain, it's about learning to dance in it. I smiled in the dark, imagining myself outstretched in the storm, wet but alive. The words were more than encouragement, they were a beacon that guided me through the storm. Every day, I got up, ignored my fears, and worked with my team as if we were family. No strings attached, no judgments. We found new, smaller, but sustainable clients, like the first drops of water after a drought. My family called, my mother worried. Are you okay? The news says the economy is bad. I told them the truth. It was tough, but I was fighting. My father offered to help, connecting me with a few acquaintances. For the first time, I didn't say no, but I didn't lean on them either. I had changed, no longer the girl who begged for recognition. The crisis didn't break me, it sharpened me. I looked at the team, at the small but cozy office, and understood that dancing in the rain wasn't just about surviving. It was about being true to yourself, come rain or shine. I stood in the middle of my office, rain tapping on the windows, as the bad news hit, a 40% loss in revenue in a week. But I didn't give up. I told my team, my voice firm, we'll get through this. We worked through the night, found new clients, cut everything we could. Then came the opportunity. A big contract with Premier Products, a medical device company. I met with them in person, shook their hand, pitched the idea in the middle of an economic storm. They chose us, not because of our size, but because we were flexible and resilient. The reputation I had built was now a bright flame, not just surviving, but shining through hardship. The family began to change. Dad called, his voice strangely warm. Do you need anything? I know a few people in the industry. I hesitated, then nodded over the phone. He connected me with a new partner. Not imposing, just supportive. Mom sent messages asking about the work, no longer the old doubts. Our relationship gradually warmed, step by step, but I no longer let it define me. My success was not their recognition. It was the nights I stood up for myself, the team that believed in me, the dreams I drew for myself. Then Catherine from Vantage Media called back, offering a partnership instead of an acquisition. I smiled, feeling the doors open. My company, now called Catalyst Digital Partners, was growing. Not to prove anything to anyone, but to be true to myself. The road ahead was long, challenging, and full of light. I walked away, not looking back, knowing my story was just beginning. Thanks for watching my story. If it moved you, smash that like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Drop a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you in the next one.